What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today we're talking about this.
Would vodka
Second
help?
book. Yeah. Yes.
Look, one of the things that I dislike very strongly about the UAP world is that you spend an inordinate amount of time, if you're just trying to be an honest, analytic person, with is there any actual tangible, incontrovertible proof? And it always seems like there's somehow this tight-knit group of people who, in general, themselves don't have direct proof, but sort of have proof one thing away.
Do you dispute the existence of atomic weapons because you can't access it?
I can't access it. No.
And that's it. And it's limited to engineering. And there's no physics in it.
It doesn't make any sense.
Say again?
It's like saying we're having trouble performing Beethoven's Fifth, and we have the finest accountants, optometrists, boxers, and cardio trainers. And you're like, well, what about violinists and violists and anybody playing the French horn? And it's like, oh, well, we don't do that.
How many other crashes between the 30s and today?
I can't give you the official number because I know that number on a classified basis. I could say it's less than 40.
Have you ever seen a UFO?
Oh, yeah. My wife and I did in Tucson, Arizona, broad daylight, a boomerang-shaped craft.
My question is, can we figure out whether or not there's a grown-up effort? Because I don't think it's really easily possible to reverse engineer these things when your science is lagging.
Agreed.
Wait. That made absolutely zero sense.
That's how they operate.
No. You said but because of that, that's why they don't. No, you absolutely need a theoretical physicist if you're going to take apart a device. But an alternate hypothesis is that this is a dummy program masking something, and the last thing you would want ever on such a program is a physicist, because the physicist is going to tear right through this thing and say, there is no Byfield-Brown effect here. Let me show you, or whatever. So my claim is that avoidance of physicists might be necessary to keep a dummy program going, just the way the presence of physicists was necessary to get a deliverable for Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Interesting. It's a special access program.
All right, Vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, y'all. All right, so what's today's video about? Well, it's about Eric Weinstein going on Jesse Michaels' show, American Alchemy, to essentially debate Eric Davis, but it's more or less a conversation, I guess I would say. But there is a back and forth. It's a 4-hour episode, y'all. Okay, I watched the entire thing on normal speed, by the way. Took a lot of notes, and we have a lot to cover today. So let's get into this video because, again, there is so many things that we're going to go over today that I think you're going to be interested in. And we're basically going to dissect the UFO legacy program, as it's called, and a lot of other sort of tributaries that come off of that. But really, I think at the end of this video, you might have a better understanding of how realistic is the idea that there is this UFO legacy program, and what might be some of the red flags that, would make it seem implausible, but not impossible. All right, so this is a very nuanced video, and I am going to be playing both sides here. So make sure to stay tuned to the very end, because in an earlier video that I did days ago about Tom DeLonge, I ran an experiment that no one knows about. I'm going to reveal that experiment and what exactly happened. But let's jump into this interview with Eric Weinstein and Eric Davis, because this is how I felt watching it. All right, so here's the first clip of many clips, so stay with me.
Eric Davis, I want to start with you. When did you become aware of this UFO legacy reverse engineering program, and how did you become aware of it, and how are you so high confidence in it?
I was working at NIDS. It'd be 30 years this July. And I was the director of aerospace physics and astrophysics research at NIDS. That's National Institute for Discovery Science that Bob Bigelow founded in 1995. And I was hired in July of 96 along with Colin Kelleher and George Onett. And John Alexander was already there on the staff, also served as a member of the Science Advisory Board. So I worked for Air Force Research Lab after NIDS and before Hal Puthoff hired me at URTEC. Okay, so then during my work at AFRL and then during my 15 years working with Hal Puthoff, we got involved with the OSAP/ATIP, and then later on the separate attempt called ATIP, and then the UAP task force that Jay Stratton led. And using my security clearances, my need to know, my access, including my letter that I'm deputized by Jim Lukatsky as a representative of the Defense Intelligence Agency, I used all that leverage and authority to get into the crash retrieval program. I couldn't get access to sea craft bodies or talk to the people, but I was able to get in to the people who handled all of that at a programmatic level and got confirmation that all of that was real, that all of it happened.
And what's your conviction level in, say, Roswell, for example, like that being a real crash involving non-human biologics?
It's 100%.
100%.
It's 100%. Because,
do you have any physical?
Because the gal from TRW confirmed it. She confirmed the other crashes that occurred, which were not all wreckage, but some were captured entire vehicles. And then there's my work with Dave Grush when I was at the Aerospace Corporation. He was at the Aerospace Corporation building in Colorado Springs because he worked for their government customer, which occupied 1 or 2 floors there.
What was David Grush doing in that capacity?
He was, I think, a security contractor or advisor to a program manager. Dave was the NRO liaison officer to the UAP task force. So he took direction from Jay Stratton.
Wasn't he National Geospatial Agency?
No, I said the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office.
Yeah, you said that, but I thought he was National Geospatial.
No, that was later.
That was later.
That was later. Yeah.
Okay, so he's the NRO liaison.
So during the UAPTF, he was the liaison officer on behalf of the NRO to the task force.
Yep, got it.
So he worked with Travis Taylor, Jay Stratton. There's some other folks that don't want to be named, I know. So I just know that there's a core group core group of 40 people, but there was a peripheral body of 1,000 people that contributed some of their time and labor and resources and the other government agencies, DOD agencies, intelligence agencies, to feed information to the task force.
Now, this is just getting us started, but it lays the groundwork for Eric Davis here, Dr. Eric Davis, who's been featured in The Age of Disclosure. He was famously part of the Wilson Davis memo. He wrote it. And, you know, he's part of OSAP, right, which was the program that was essentially before ATIP. Now, this is a lot of insider baseball, so if you're not familiar with all this stuff, which I think most of you are, but if you're not, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Just understand that, you know, he's a scientist that has been investigating and researching the UFO legacy program. And this clip, really what it set up was really his high confidence that he portrays, right? That he's very knowledgeable, has a lot of experience in this. And again, you can even see him say he's 100% confident, right? And that we have crashed craft essentially, right? In Roswell specifically, but you'll kind of notice that same 100% guarantee throughout the video and a lot of things he says. And I find that to be interesting. And for me, that's always a red flag on this channel. Anyone who's just 100%, right? Leaving no room for error, right? Essentially not open-minded. That is not the true definition of open-minded. I'm sorry. So again, kind of a red flag, but Eric Weinstein is going to, as we go through this video, pick apart a lot of these holes. But again, this was a very respectable conversation, and I respect Eric Davis for sitting down and talking with Eric Weinstein. And just because Eric Davis is so confident in what he's saying doesn't mean that he's wrong, but I don't think it means that he's right either, because again, as you'll learn in this video, he really hasn't seen anything. It's all just what he's been told, and that seems to be the tried and true story in this community, right? Now, clearly he's got access and levels that the majority of us will never have, but as you'll also learn in this video, he doesn't have as much access as you think he does. Now, before we get to the next video, I got to keep the mics on, y'all, so let me introduce the sponsor for this video. Hey, are you annoyed with all those misleading healthy meals that are just junk in disguise? Tired of jumping on another New Year's trend that just fizzles out fast? Look, I've been there. Until I started using Green Chef. It's the trusted authority in real clean eating. Delivering only farm-sourced, high-quality ingredients you can feel good about eating. Every box brings certified organic produce, reasonably sourced proteins and seafood. No ultra-processed fillers. Ever. Choose from over 40 customizable weekly recipes, like Mediterranean, high-protein plant-based, or high-fiber options. All science-backed to help you hit your wellness goals. It's super convenient too. They handle the research, shopping, and planning, so you can get low-prep, low-mess meals that fit your life. Plus, it's the most sustainable food kit out there, cutting food waste by 20% compared to grocery shopping, and offsetting 100% of delivery emissions. I use Green Chef, and you should too. It's made clean eating effortless and delicious. Head to greenchef.com/50vetted and use code 50vetted to get 50% off your first month. Then 20% off for 2 months with free shipping. That's code 50vetted at greenchef.com/50vetted. Now, let's get to what I would consider a very juicy clip, and our first contradiction or red flag, as you might call it. Take a look.
A lot of people ask about kind of circular reporting when it comes to UFO, testimonies. David Grush is what a lot of people, I think, are hinging their belief on, because he's just seems like a very kind of honest, above board guy who stumbled into a lot of this stuff. How many of his witnesses, his 40 witnesses, are more of kind of the hapless engineer type that just worked on the vehicles versus people who have, kind of secondhand or, third hand?
No, they're all firsthand. It's just that it's something that Eric and I had lots of hours and hours of conversations about 2 years ago. Not a single of them were a physicist.
So on the surface, you may think, okay, what's wrong with that question and answer, Patrick? Well, there's a few things. Let's kind of just pick this apart a little bit. All right. So first, he's saying that all 40 of David Grush's witnesses are firsthand. That's never been said before, first of all. And David Grush is the whistleblower who testified in July of 2023, right? And he famously had done this like years-long investigation uncovering the UFO legacy program. He knew where the craft, the bodies, all of that are. Okay, we're not going to get into that in today's video. But he had this list of, quote, 40 witnesses, right? And some, if we're being technical, he said 40 and more witnesses, 40 plus or something, right? And what's interesting is, first of all, Eric Davis in this never says 40 or more. He just says 40 witnesses. I think that's important, because that's a small detail that, if people are picking this apart, they're going to rip me in the comments for that. But Eric Davis only says 40, and there's another clip later that'll help establish that as well. But what I found to be interesting from this, unless you know this community, right, unless you know a lot about this topic, you wouldn't have seen the red flag. But I'm going to show it to you. And it's this. You see, I made a video a couple of years ago that Eric Davis had come out and claimed to be one of David Grush's 40 witnesses. But he doesn't say that in this interview. In fact, he refers to the witnesses as they are firsthand witnesses, right? So what's going on there, right? And take a look at this screenshot from the video. I'm going to put a link in the description so you can go check out the video. All right, see it for yourself. I brought the receipts, and this is from a post on Facebook that Eric Davis made. It's been confirmed. There's no question that this is from Eric Davis. All right, and this is what he said. I interacted with Dave Grush from 2020 to 2022 as part of my job. I was one of his classified IGIC whistleblower complaint witnesses because he got the breadcrumbs from me and a close colleague on where to find the UAP crash retrieval program. Now, you could argue, okay, this isn't the witnesses from his investigation that he did. This is a whistleblower complaint that he had, but I don't know, right? In my opinion, he's saying he's one of David Grush's witnesses, and some other things came out later after that. First of all, he never denied that when the story came out, right? So again, as we'll find, it's just all confusing. So he had witnesses in his ICIG complaint, or is the ICIG complaint his investigation, right? Because we never got to see any of this stuff. None of it got released. There was no follow-up, right? And I think this is the same thing. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd be very curious to hear what you think here. Is Dr. Eric Davis contradicting himself, or does this all make sense? And at the end of that clip, you saw Dr. Eric Davis mention, there were no physicists in the program. That's going to be a huge talking point in today's video. So stay prepared.
Not a single one of these guys were physicists. They had some discipline in engineering in their profession. They were either electrical engineers, material scientists, aerospace engineers, aeromechanical, aerothermal, thermal control, fluid mechanics. Yeah.
Save that thought.
There wasn't a real physicist there. Nobody at the PhD level who was either an applied physicist or a theoretical physicist.
Save that thought, please, because that is going to basically be the entire kind of premise for the second part of this. Do you have any questions as I'm sort of,
Well, look, one of the things that I dislike very strongly about the UAP world is that you spend an inordinate amount of time, if you're just trying to be an honest, analytic person, is there any actual tangible, incontrovertible proof? And it always seems like there's somehow this tight-knit group of people who, in general, themselves don't have direct proof, but sort of have proof one thing away. And people build entire theories about the names of crafts and who was where, and I just have no idea as a civilian and a technical civilian how to think about this, because I don't want to spend our time in the is it real or not mode, because that basically wastes time, and it's also how conspirators get people not to work on conspiracy theories that could work, is that you demonize and stigmatize the behavior. So I usually would prefer in this situation to just decamp and assume the nature of all of these things. But just to be honest, and it just needs to be said once, I've been looking at this now, I don't know, 5 years since Jesse first crammed it down my throat, and I would say I was clearly wrong about it. It's an enormous area. There's so many people who claim to have had contact with this program in one form or another. I can't believe that anyone could train an acting troupe at Brando levels of sincerity to lie to me like that. On the other hand, I've never seen anything like it where I can't get a single shred of incontrovertible proof, and so many people seem to have it, but they all seem to be under some kind of an NDA where they can't give something real. So just the first frustrating question is, how is it possible that something this large that involves this many people has zero scientifically incontrovertible pieces of evidence, so that we can actually, there's no way to predicate a discussion in a way that I know that's responsible. It just completely eludes the scientific community.
Yeah, it's because the incontrovertible evidence is kept in the classified realm for security reasons.
Well, but
there you go.
Again, I don't want to.
Do you dispute the existence of atomic weapons because you can't access it?
I can access it.
Oh, you can access it.
Yes,
if I look at the
teller,
plutonium core.
no, never kept the demon core in my
Okay.
basement.
Oh, how about the
But I appreciate
the
the
lithium-6 fuel and
What?
the primary nuclear?
Oh, we used to do that in high school.
Oh,
No. What I'm saying is that the Teller-Ulam design is released as a highly redacted report, right? And so I have an idea from plenty of sources that this program exists. And what's more, in the case of atomic weapons, physicists are not perfectly locked down. It's a high trust community, and in general, people are willing to talk, even if they shouldn't, about the role of physics in atomic weapons. I have never heard a colleague, not once, at a high level in physics, give any credence to this world. In other words,
well, that's because they didn't have access. They didn't have need to know. They didn't have a contract where they had to have access.
Which again, it's not a challenge in that sense. Assume that there is a dividing line.
So again, like I said, this is still a talking point that we're going to cover in this video, but a lot actually. And the basic idea is Eric Weinstein is basically arguing, where are all the physicists working on this, right? You have all kinds of other people working on this project, this program, right, for so long, but no physicists have been involved, period. And again, there's a lot more evidence to support this, and this is a huge red flag that Eric Weinstein doesn't let go. And he's not the first time he's talked about it, and I actually really appreciate that. But there's more to this, right? So let's kind of move on to the next thing. But I will say real quick, it was interesting, Eric just saying, how do you know about atomic weapons? And, Eric's like, well, I can look this up, essentially, right? I can prove that exists. First of all, there was 2 bombs that were blown over Japan in World War II. But, where's the definitive proof for this, right? Again, there is no definitive proof out there. No matter how many stories and podcasts different UFO researchers go on or try to tell you, it's always an amalgamation of evidence that's what proves it. Or why would these people be lying? Or this? Scientists don't work in that way, right? Scientists just don't work in that way. So again, this is very interesting and a great point, right, that Eric Weinstein brings up. So let's continue.
I would say, okay, I would imagine that if this is an existential threat, that there's stuff from someplace we can't understand that moves and breaks the laws of physics and all this, we would call that in. Now, one of the great things that came out of our discussions before is you said this thing, which I repeated on Rogan because I didn't think it was classified. You said, when it comes to being technical, just at this point, that they don't invite in physicists, you said, you said that Eric, you, me, and Hal Puthoff are the 3 most technical people on this. And I said, I'm not on this.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. You should be in it.
Now, I don't know about you, but that's a huge red flag, right? That Eric Weinstein is talking about there, right? Me, you, Hal, we're the best people on this. What are we talking about, right? That's absolutely insane thing to say, right? And again, this isn't the first time that Eric Weinstein has brought that up. Like he said, he brought that up on Rogan.
Eric W. Davis says to me, I said, is there nobody out here who speaks physics? This doesn't make any sense. And he says, well, you, Hal, and I are the 3 most technical people on this. Joe, I'm not even on this.
So you know as much about it as anyone, and you're not even involved. And there's only 2 other people that know the science behind this?
And one of them is into remote viewing and was a Scientologist.
Now, again, that was from years ago, right? And he's basically saying Hal Puthoff is into remote viewing and he's a Scientologist, right? And Eric Davis, it's like he has no faith in this, to be honest with you, right? In a lot of ways, because they do this weird thing behind the scenes where they talk to people and try to get them, involved with these weird little things. And it's almost like they were trying to recruit Eric Weinstein and then make him seem like, see, it's me, you, and Hal, we're a part of this. And Eric's like, what are you talking? Like, I'm not a part of this. What are you talking about? It just, honestly, to me, that's a a look inside of how they pull people into this to get them on board, right? Make them feel like they're part of it. You're a big part of this, man. You're one of the main people. Oh, one of the main people? The UFO legacy program? Biggest secret hidden in humanity? Oh my God. Oh geez, I'm important, you know. But see, Eric Weinstein doesn't fall for this kind of stuff, right? And I just find that so interesting. And then you ask yourself, like, where did this all start?
Now that I've been contacted by people saying, Eric, you know, Sam Harris and I were both contacted saying that there's a disclosure planned and there's big updates and we need you to communicate this news to the world.
There's disclosure about a specific technology.
About something. I mean, more or less the way this works, it doesn't matter who you talk to. Something is huge. I can't talk to you about it because you don't have clearance. But we're going to fly you out to Colorado Springs. And we're going to show you some stuff and you're never going to be the same. Right? Like, okay, I'm on standby. My process, Joe, is that I'm very open-minded, but I have a very strong filter before I'll say, yeah, that's true, that's real.
Okay.
That freaks people out. It's like, why are you even talking to these people? Well, because I know the history, and you don't. So I was open to this. Sam was open to this. And it's Lucy in the football every goddamn week. When am I headed out to Colorado? Oh, you're going to be met by a car and you're going to be blindfolded and you won't know where you are. It's like, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This week, next week, the week after. Oh, no, something's come up on the hill. Things are getting crazy. We're going to be talking to some very big people. I can't talk to you right yet. So that's been my weird life now, a part of it for like 3 years. I don't know how long.
For 3 years, they've been telling you that they're going to release this.
Well, yeah, and it's always pushed out, right? So like, it's a mañana program. Okay? It's always mañana. And I'm not falling for it, but I'm telling you now that I have information. I can't tell you everything I know. I wish I could, but I'm a team player, and if somebody says something in confidence, I'm not going to reveal it on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Okay.
But there's some things I can say that nobody else can say, which is I had a very weird reaction to this. I think Sam was initially interested, and then they mañana'd him 3 times, and he said, I'm out. Doesn't talk about it. I went a different route. I said, okay, you guys keep saying all this stuff is real. You keep saying you've got high-quality data that you can't show anybody because it's all stovepipe. You hear this word over and over, stovepipe, meaning that each little group is isolated. Like Bob Lazar says,
yeah.
I was only allowed to see this little thing. So I say, okay, am I right that you're telling me that these things are real? Yeah. And then they say, and that nobody could do this that we know of? I said, that's right, because they seem to defy the laws of physics. You hear this phrase over and again, defy the laws of physics. I said, great. I need to talk to somebody who speaks physics. How do you know they defy physical law? Well, we can see that they do. It's like, okay, if they defy physical law, then there should be a physicist to tell me that they defy physical law, who's seen the data. Maybe he can't release it to me, or she, but tell me somebody who speaks tensor analysis. So tell me somebody who knows what the Dirac equation is, like a pretty low bar for a physicist. There is no one.
Wow. Right? Just wow. Again, they sort of like honeypotted him. I mean, not actually that way, but again, they tried to slide in and convince him, yeah, these things are real because they defy the laws of physics, right? And Eric is just not falling for this stuff. I mean, good on him. And this interview is from years ago, and he's talking about years prior to that. So we're probably talking 2019 or so. They're approaching him and Sam Harris. I got a clip for that, so stay with me. To show him all these secrets, blindfold them, take them out, right? And then he calls it mañana program, right? Which is hilarious, right? I call it breadcrumb disclosure. It's essentially the same thing, right? And then they can never produce the goods. They keep moving the goalposts. Again, this was almost a decade ago, right? Over a half a decade ago. This is absolutely insane to me. It's such a red flag. And wait till you see the very last clip I play of Eric Weinstein, because he hasn't budged, right, essentially, about this. he's still wondering where are they, still asking the same questions. They still haven't been able to provide it, and they're still trying to prop him up like, you should be a part of this. He should be a part of it. He's just a private citizen. Like, what are we talking about? Right? He's not even a physicist. I mean, the red flags here are absolutely insane. And a part of me thinks Jesse did it for this reason, to sort of point out these inconsistencies. Doesn't mean the phenomena doesn't exist, but it means that there is definitely a big group of people behind the scenes sort of manufacturing and, trying to infiltrate disinformation. I just don't even know what's going on. Right? It's just like the truth is just not there. It's all, again, same story as always. This guy told this guy and this guy told that guy. And I'm telling you it's real because I trust that guy 100%. Right? They use all these terms which don't really work on a lot of people. It's working on less and less people because you can only tell the same story so many times where people go, okay, where's the proof already? Right? You keep saying mañana, but mañana no venga, vámonos. It's like, it gets tiring, right? And again, they even tried to loop in Sam Harris again back in the day. It's like they're always trying to get people involved with big platforms so that they can start spreading these messages, right? We've seen this before. We saw it with Michael Ian Black, the comedian that came on, right? An actor, where they told him the 2027 alien threat and all of that, right? And again, this is all just my opinion and I'm speculating, right? But this is what I think's going on. It's just absolute, to me, it shows absolute BS, right? If you ask me. But here's Sam Harris explaining on the Lex Friedman podcast a little bit more from his side and why he kind of left.
In raising a question that I'm going to be talking to you, a lot of people brought up this topic, probably because Eric Weinstein talked to Joe Rogan recently and said that he and you were contacted by folks about UFOs. Can you clarify the nature of this contact?
Yeah.
That you were contacted about.
I've got very little to say on this. I mean, he has much more to say. I think he went down this rabbit hole further than I did, which wouldn't surprise anyone. He's got much more of a taste for this sort of thing than I do, but I think we were contacted by the same person. It wasn't clear to me who this person was or how this person got my cell phone number. They didn't seem. It didn't seem like we were getting punked. I mean, the person seemed credible to me.
And they were talking to you about the release of different videos on UFOs.
Yeah, and this is when there was a flurry of activity around this. So there was a big New Yorker article on UFOs, and there was rumors of congressional hearings, I think, coming, and there were the videos that were being debunked or not. And so this person contacted both of us, I think, around the same time, and I think he might have contacted Rogan or other. Eric is just the only person I've spoken to about it, I think, who I know was contacted, and what happened is the person kept, writing a check that he didn't cash. Like he kept saying, okay, next week I'm going to, I understand this is sounding spooky and, you have no reason to really trust me, but next week I'm going to put you on a Zoom call with people who you will recognize. And they're going to be, former heads of the CIA and, people who just, you're going to, within 5 seconds of being on the Zoom call, you'll know this is not a hoax. And I said, great, just let me know. Just send me the Zoom link, right? And that happened maybe 3 times. There was just one phone conversation, and then it was just texts, just a bunch of texts. And I think Eric spent more time with this person, and I haven't spoken to him about it. I know he spoke about it publicly, but so I it's not that my bullshit detector ever really went off in a big way. It's just the thing never happened, and I lost interest.
So, in my opinion, he's talking about Eric Davis. Again, these people seem credible, right, at first glance. And they use that credibility to write checks that they then can't cash, right? Again, same old story. But We're not done.
It's a waived unacknowledged special access program, right?
Okay.
And so I said, so where are your physicists? What are your theoretical and applied physicists telling you? He said, well, we don't have any. We never did. We only were allowed to keep it down to roughly a handful of people in the company to work on this.
Yes.
And that's it. And it's limited to engineering. And there's no physics in it.
It doesn't make any sense.
Say again?
I'm just trying to logically think about this.
Okay.
And, it's like saying we're having trouble performing Beethoven's Fifth, and we have the finest accountants, optometrists, boxers, and cardio trainers. And you're like, well, what about violinists and violists and anybody playing the French horn? And it's like, oh, well, we don't do that. Mm-hmm. So of course you're not going to play Beethoven's Fifth. I mean, because you can't engineer your way out of a science problem.
Yeah. But let me tell you, I think you've got a great point about talking about the Manhattan Project. This thing is not.
What a great analogy. And this is exactly it. This is a huge hole in this story, right? An absolutely insane hole. If you're to believe Eric Davis, right? Who's this credible person. And Hal Puthoff, right? Again, both featured in the Age of Disclosure, both part of moving this forward, Disclosure, which it's just been a recycled game over and over again, right? And especially since 2017, that New York Times article came out, To the Stars Academy, that's like the new wave. And now it's just that they've been rebooting that over and over. And that was a reboot, right? But again, Eric Davis makes a great analogy. And again, this isn't the first time he's brought it up. On that same Joe Rogan interview, he talked about this exact same thing. So he's been saying this great point, making this great point for a long time.
So I'm just, imagine that you take your wife to the symphony, okay? You're going to see Beethoven's Seventh. And you look at the string section. The brass section's in place and the percussion is there. And you look at the string section and it's a bunch of certified public accountants. You're like, where are the violins? Where are the violas? Like, oh no. Actually, that we have reporters for the AP. They're stringers. Like, that's not the same thing. We have string theorists. That's not the same thing. I'm looking for this is simple. Mm-hmm. I've been on this for 3 years and I can't find anybody who speaks this language, which now that is a huge clue. Imagine that you say that we've lost control of our airspace. We're being menaced. Threats to civilian aviation, military aviation, they're seeing these things every day. They defy the physical laws and there are no physicists anywhere to be found. That smells like BS. Or it smells like a pathological level of bureaucratic incompetence.
I mean, Eric Weinstein says it great. We have a physics problem and we don't involve physicists. It just doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. And there are many different stories floating around. We've made no progress. We haven't reverse engineered anything. And then there's other reports that we're literally flying spaceships in space, ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles. So which is it? How is that happening, right? You got all kinds of just conflicting stories about this. It's odd and it doesn't make sense.
Do you take David Grush at face value that Dick Cheney was the last head honcho of this sort of program?
And there's not really a mob boss. The closest person we got that I was aware of was, unfortunately, now deceased Vice President Dick Cheney, Darth Vader himself. Not shocking that he was involved in this. And essentially, when he left in 2009, that was the last time that these activities really had central leadership.
I never heard that before. So that never came up in our classified and unclassified conversations. I'm not aware that Dick Cheney had any role.
So David Grush has said that. And how does Eric Davis not know that? He's never heard that. I just find that so strange. The David Grush is the only one that has said that. And no one else seems to be backing that up at all. Because Eric Davis connects himself to David Grush so much. In fact, he's the one that led him on his little trail, right? Gave him the breadcrumbs to go get going on this. even saying he's one of his IG witnesses. But yet he's never heard about this Dick Cheney theory that he was at the top, right? Like, again, I don't know what's going on here.
You have Roswell in 47. You have Magenta before that in Italy, but then this craft crashes there, and that gets transferred to U.S. possession.
Mhm.
And then how many other crashes between the 30s and today?
I can't give you the official number because I know that number on a classified basis. I could say it's less than 40.
Okay, less than 40. I think Hal Puthoff said on the Joe Rogan Experience somewhere like we have between 10 and 15 crafts in our
He
possession.
said 15. I think he said more than 10, but that's still
More than 10.
Yeah.
Okay,
He
got
said
it.
more than 10. I'll just say less than 40.
Would you
Okay, more than 10.
would you describe the majority as wreckage or intact?
Mix.
An
It's a
even
mix.
Okay.
Okay.
And not all of them involve recovery of NHI bodies.
And you are
Through your, I'm so sorry.
No,
through,
go for it.
Through your investigations, like, did you ever encounter technical intelligence that you considered high credibility that seemed like it would have had to have come from direct communication with NHI, or did it all seem like it could have been through passive investigation?
I couldn't get to that. There's two things I couldn't get into because I didn't have access. I didn't have the right clearances, and I wasn't allowed to. Let's put it this way. There are people I was working with who knew who to contact, but they wouldn't give me the contact because they were not allowed to give out the name and organizational office or program that the individual worked at. And so they were not allowed to share that with me. So I couldn't get into the NHI issue. I couldn't get into the alien or NHI contact issue.
The fact that Ryder essentially said we'd have no idea how this works, does that imply to you they never had they never had the ability to ask questions of someone with full knowledge of the technology? Did you ever make that connection?
No, I think Dave Grush was able to make that connection. I couldn't.
Dr. Davis, what gives you confidence that we haven't made progress with any of this material?
I can't speak of my confidence level after my senior VP source died, because before then I'm highly confident because he was still connected in. He was still on active duty work up until he got retired in the early 2010s. Then he's retired after that, so he's sharing with me the information that he had all the way up until he retired. And so I'm highly confident at 100% level that what he told me is right. And as a matter of fact, he arranged for me to meet one of his coworkers on the crash retrieval program back in the 70s and 80s.
Did you meet them?
Oh, yeah, it was a woman. I met her. My source, his wife, took me to her home, picked her up. We went into San Jose to have dinner at a German restaurant.
How many of those people, crash retrieval program people, have you met total?
Okay, so I think it's 5 total.
Okay.
5 total at that particular company.
How many have you met total in your life?
It was just those 2 from that company and 1 from TRW.
Okay. Wow.
Did you meet many of the 40 of Dave Grush's firsthand witnesses?
Say again?
Did you meet many of the 40 of Dave?
I didn't even know who they are, really. He never shared that with me.
I see.
I have a rough guess, but believe me, don't confuse that 40 with the 40 core people on the task force, on UAP task force. They're not
totally different. Yeah.
They're totally different. There's no overlap.
No, that makes, I would hope that there's no real.
Yeah, I don't think Dave was allowed to tell me the names of those people or their organizations and where they're located because that was WUSAP level.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few things I want to discuss in this clip. One, he's saying, don't confuse the 40 people that work for the UAPTF task force, right? Which David Grush was a part of, Jay Stratton, right? These guys, Travis Taylor, with his 40 witnesses. Well, that's just very interesting that there's both 40, but, as Jesse points out, I hope that's not the same people, right? Can you imagine if his 40 witnesses are just the 40 people that work for the task force? Right. And again, remember, Eric Davis said there are 40 firsthand witnesses. But we've established in this before on Vetted that what does firsthand mean? Because people who have seen documents claim they're firsthand witnesses. Right. People who've seen photos, they claim to be firsthand witnesses. But you and I both know what we think that firsthand means. You've touched a craft, you've seen it with your own eyes, or an alien body, you've talked to an alien, not, you know, or you spoke to, you know, even people who have spoke to people in the program, they're firsthand witnesses. Again, the goalposts get moved, everything is ambiguous and all over the place, and we never have terms clearly defined. And when you don't have terms that are clearly defined, you know, the world is your oyster. They can just make anything seem like anything. It's basically becomes like the information becomes like a transformer. You can just transform into anything, right? The subject, us, we fill in the gaps. We assume everything and put all the pieces together, and they don't have to do anything, right? We basically, they provide the pieces, and we just make the disinformation ourselves by putting it all together wrong, right? And then they're like, well, you never said that. It's like, you did. No, but that's not what we meant. But we didn't know that, right? Because there's really no follow-up questions. And, you know, Eric Davis spent a lot of this interview talking a lot, talking fast, and like, it's like he doesn't want anyone to get in there and ask different particular questions or push back on things, right? I find that to be, I don't know, a red flag in my life. You know, just in my life, when you're trying to talk to somebody, they're just talking so fast and getting in. They don't want you to get in there, right? They don't want you to get in and find any holes, right? You're trying to move past the next thing because you're not really that confident in it. So you just move and just throwing all these other facts and details that don't really matter. I just found that to be interesting. Now, you'll also notice someone in the video now that they showed. This guy on the screen right here goes by Jack, and they blurred out his last name. But actually, when I saw the video, his name wasn't blurred out. So they've since blurred it out. But I got to see his full name. And that guy has, you know, always remained anonymous online. He goes by Missile Man on Twitter. And I've actually had him on the show. And so I found that to be interesting. So now I know his name. Now I'm not going to reveal it because that would just not be cool. There's a reason that they blurred it. But that was quite a mistake for them to make, to be honest with you. So I'm sure a lot of people saw that. You know, I don't know. I don't know why the guy wants to be anonymous anyway if he's going to be on the show, right? And like blur out. He's just, again, just more weird stuff that goes on in this community with people. Because that guy likes to do background checks on people. You know, it's like, what are you doing? It's like, I find it so weird when people online want to do background checks on people while they remain anonymous. Right? Well, let's do a background check on you. Right? We're just supposed to believe your story. Right? It's so weird. And I don't know. That's a side note, but regardless. There's something very strange here about how many craft we have, right? Less than 40, more than 10. According to Eric Davis, he doesn't even remember what Hal Puthoff said. Like, it's classified, so I can say under 40, but then Hal Puthoff says over 10. Like, again, just information is so weird, right? And Hal Puthoff did say that on Joe Rogan. And again, what are we talking about here? I just get so confused. This is so frustrating. I want to believe in this stuff so bad, but the red flags just like, I can't ignore them. I don't know what to say here. I don't know. What do you think in the comments? Let's keep going because we're not done.
How did Admiral Thomas Wilson react when you met him in 1997, and why did people direct him to you, and then what transpired in the meeting?
I can't get into that because I can't confirm or deny that we met for the security reasons.
Okay.
There are legal issues still involved that are active. So, because I can't reveal that in public, that wasn't meant for public consumption, and that was released from Mitchell's estate, and that was supposed to be destroyed 1 year after Mitchell got a copy of it as a courtesy from who generated it. And unfortunate that his kids were sloppy, and I guess Ed was sloppy in that he didn't give any instructions on what to do with that document if he should die, but he was supposed to destroy that as far as I understand.
I would be remiss if I didn't. This can be cut if it's not okay to air, but during our discussion in San Francisco, you did confirm that you wrote the Wilson Davis notes by way of a conversation about
I can confirm they're
seeking
real.
legal counsel.
Yeah, they're real. They're legit. They're 100% accurate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But that's the typewritten version. That there's a handwritten version, but that's all I can say about it.
Okay, so basically, Eric Davis is confirmed to have written the Wilson Davis memo. And for a long time, people were wondering if that's real, right? But there's two questions to ask if it's real. Is the memo real, and what happened in the memo real? Those are two different questions, and that doesn't get stipulated, and the nuance gets lost in it. Because people go, is it real? Oh, it's real. Oh my God, can you believe what was said in it? But they don't forget to ask, is what in it real? Eric Davis may have written it, but doesn't mean it's real what's in it, right? And there's a whole, backstory to that whole Wilson Davis memo if you're not familiar with it. But, Eric Weinstein, when he was on Joe Rogan, he brought it up and told Joe Rogan about it, who had never heard about it. But if you don't know anything about it, I recommend looking into it. It is interesting data nonetheless, but again, the contents of the memo, that's what people want to know if it's real, not did Eric Davis write it.
Do you know who Eric W. Davis is?
No.
You ever heard of the Wilson memo?
No.
Okay, there's something called the Wilson memo where there's a physicist who meets a general or an admiral, and the general or the admiral is trying to figure out, I think this is at EG&G, why is there some program that I'm not allowed to know about? I have the highest clearances. I have a need to know. Like, sorry, we can't tell you. He's talking to somebody named Eric W. Davis. Eric W. Davis, so far as I can find, is the only person other than maybe Hal Puthoff who I've been able to talk to who speaks anything of these languages. This is not a particularly famous physicist. Hal Puthoff is an electrical engineer, I think a PhD in electrical engineering.
So what's interesting about this too is that if Eric Davis is a physicist, why don't they have him on the program? But they don't want physicists on the program. But they're allowed to tell him everything about the program. This whole interview, it made me realize that having Eric Davis on, when you find out actually how much he was involved with this stuff and where his knowledge comes from, it's like, imagine if you watched a sports show and they brought on a fan instead of a sports player. And they talked to the fan for 3 hours about the sport. Let's say baseball. They brought on some fan about baseball, and he's like, I've been to all these games. I've talked to players. This, that. But you don't talk to the player. Like, who would watch that? That's essentially what's happening here, right? It's so weird. You know what I mean? Yeah, I played a little baseball in high school, and I go to all the games, and you're aware of everything. You know what I mean? You know all the players and the stats, and again, you've talked to a few players and maybe gone to a few different events, and you got some cards and you've got some autographs, and you've had a dinner here or there, and you've heard stories and stuff. Like, that's essentially what we're getting. We're getting a sports fan, right, to talk. And that's the problem. There's only sports fans to talk to. We never get to talk to the sports players or the coaches or anybody involved with the actual organization. We never get to talk to people from the program. It's only people who have allegedly spoken to people in the program. It's so weird. It's so weird.
Have you ever seen a UFO?
Oh, yeah, my wife and I did in Tucson, Arizona, broad daylight, a boomerang-shaped craft, below traffic pattern altitude. Looked kind of like halfway boomerang, halfway boot heel type shape, but it was close.
Have you ever seen a craft in a hangar?
No.
Have you
I wish. I wanted to.
Have you ever seen any one-of-one material? So idiosyncratic, never seen before material?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and the arch parts don't qualify.
Okay.
We don't know what the provenance of that is. And Hal and I were involved in the TTS meeting at the Pentagon Conference Room in August of 2024, where we read the full 90-page ORNL. That's the office Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Their 90-page materials analysis report on the arch parts. And there was nothing there. There was no there. There's a little bit of ambiguity, because here's the ambiguity. the way that material was assembled is not consistent with what we were doing in the 1940s era, when magnesium became a major alloy of interest for the aerospace community. And so that's the ambiguity. But the isotope ratios of the materials it contains are Earth. They're manufactured.
But
isotope-
Hal Puthoff is on record saying that material microsizes waveguides for terahertz
that
frequencies.
was mistaken.
That was mistaken. He was
Yep,
wrong
he's
about
mistaken. There's a paper that was published that suggested that, but this particular material was not in that proper configuration. It had no configuration to be a superconductor or a metamaterial terahertz waveguide.
Was he also
It had
mistaken that it was layered at a micron level, thinner than a
no.
Cuban
That's not
hair?
mistaken. What's mistaken is that we did not know. Hal and I did know that there was more to it than just layers of bismuth and magnesium. There were layers of zinc and lead in it.
So this is interesting because Art's Parts is widely distributed through the UFO community, and it has for a long time. It's essentially a group of UFO parts that were collected from a crash site, and different people have them and have studied them and had put them out as UFO parts. I mean, they're all over the place. All kinds of different people have presented them over decades, right? All kinds of main UFO personalities have had these. Some people deny there are spars, but then you find out they really are, and nobody really wants to say that because it kind of diminishes it. And even Hal Puthoff at one point, who Eric Davis says multiple times in this interview, by the way, like, oh, Hal Puthoff was mistaken. He was mistaken. Like, wait, what? So they were mistaken about it, right? Because that's what happens when you come out with the story. That's what people focus on. The correction that comes later for it gets lost in the mix, right? Because once the story's out, that's what sticks. That's what spreads around. So, I don't know, just very interesting. And this will get lost in this interview as well about Art's Parts. And if you ever hear that name, just know there's really nothing to it.
Why are there no theoretical physicists on the program? And what do you think is going on? How do you think maybe what we've talked about with the observables of UFOs might dovetail with some of your theories?
Okay, well, I don't even know how to begin this. I mean, look, the first thing is that in general, I can produce too many explanations through a creative, sometimes undisciplined mind for a certain set of facts. And this is one of the only times, and perhaps the only time, I've ever seen a situation where I cannot come up with a single theory of what's going on that explains all of the bizarre behavior in UFO UAP land. Too many people who seem relatively reasonable with nearly eidetic memories talking about particular names, dates. It is impossible to me that we have a theater company that has figured out how to create this space opera. And on the other hand, the lack of anything tangible. I don't believe in something this old, this long, this many events, that we have absolutely nothing to go on. So let me just say from the beginning that this is the odd situation. One of the reasons nobody from my world wants to get involved with it is that it just makes you look foolish from the point of view of a scientist.
Well,
because
they can't
everything
get involved unless they're working on a contract.
Well, the sky is
then they get a clearance.
Sky is a big place, and
I disagree.
He disagrees. Well, I think Eric Weinstein is making a lot of good points, and Eric Davis is so into this. It's really hard to tell how genuine he is. He seems genuine. He seems just like he got caught up in this and he really believes it, right? And he got told by a lot of things that he, wants to be part of the boys club, right? Just like he tried to get Eric in the boys club. And that's probably what they did to him. I can't really tell, right? I just really don't see him purposefully giving out misinformation. Seems like a nice guy, and he genuinely believes in this. And that's how this works, right? You get people who are already leaning that way and are very malleable, very, very impressionable, no matter how smart they are. right? That has nothing to do with if you can be convinced of something, right? So I don't know. I just found that to be very interesting from Eric Davis. And look, you know, what's also interesting is Eric Weinstein recently went on Piers Morgan uncensored and talked about all the new developments of UFOs. And what he has to say here is kind of interesting, to be honest with you, considering what he's saying in this podcast with Eric Davis.
Donald Trump has now said he will release all the classified files on UFOs and aliens. And you posted after that, an enormous secret is buried here. I have failed to guess it year after year. What did you mean by that?
We have a puzzle that I can't solve. There is more accumulated anecdotal, circumstantial, and sporadic evidence of an enormous program about UFOs than I know how to dismiss. I've talked to people who have strikingly similar firsthand accounts of bizarre behavior, either in terms of objects in the skies or the seas, or seeming U.S. government employees with no insignia and no identification behaving in bizarre ways. I can't explain the amount of firsthand claims from non-actors delivered with perfect sincerity that would make Hollywood blush if there isn't a reality behind it. Now, sometimes we get a look at that. For example, there's a private air force that seems to come down from the skies and destroy equipment of people observing UFOs that I think turned out to be the CIA's Office of Global Access. I wasn't smart enough to figure out how you could hide an air force inside of the United States from a breakaway society, but I think it was just the CIA. So, that was bad for me. I didn't get that right. I think what you're seeing is that there's probably a very long-standing program, particularly involving physics, and particularly involving aerospace companies, not as aerospace as we know it, but as shells in which you can put very sensitive stuff that could be FOIA'd if it was found inside of government. I don't know what's in that structure. I think Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is going to be very important. There's a site in Indiana, several in New Mexico. My guess is that you're going to find out that a lot of these stories, just take New Mexico. New Mexico is going to be the hub that connects atomic weapons, UFOs, and Jeffrey Epstein. And they're all going to merge into one story about power that we don't understand. Human power is going to be centered in a state that we barely ever talk about. And including Bill Richardson at the Department of Energy, which of course is really the custodian of physics and our nuclear weapons that Jimmy Carter converted from the AEC, where atomic energy was the cover story for atomic weapons. So it went from atomic weapons to atomic energy to just energy, and now we sound like Bill Richardson went there to be the head of oil and gas. So I think that you're going to find out that New Mexico is going to be the hub that connects all these stories.
I'm sorry, what? A private air force from the CIA that destroys people observing UFOs? What are we talking about? I never heard of this. It's like Eric Weinstein is kind of like adding to the lore here. I don't know. I found this to be an interesting departure. And again, told you I was going to show you everything. Not trying to both sidesing this, right? Got to show all the stuff, right? As much as I love Eric Weinstein and, always followed him, always enjoyed his interviews. Honestly, I mean that. I've really enjoyed listening to him speak. And I really enjoyed him in this Eric Davis interview, and he brought up so many good points. But God, I have so many questions for this Piers Morgan interview that he did, where he talked, just on this clip alone. I don't know. It's not like it's contradicting, but I don't know. It's like, it kind of seems like he's on board with this as well, but he's asking pertinent questions. So he may believe something's going on, but he's also curious about why the red flags. So it just seems like he's interested, like us, right? But where did he hear this information about this private air force, right, working for the CIA that, goes after people that are observing UFOs? I've never heard that, y'all. That's brand new to me. And this whole Epstein, New Mexico, UFOs connection and how that's all going to come to a head. I have no idea. I think it has to do with Zorro Ranch and all of that. But again, I have no idea what some of that means. So let me know what you think down in the comments. And again, we're not done, y'all. One
of the top government scientists, I can't think of his name, you would know who it is. He was a physicist, and Hal Puthoff knew him. And he had a lot of clearances into the Manhattan Project, the Post-Manhattan Project, a lot of other high technology projects throughout areas of the DoD. And so he was a academician, and he had clearances. A colleague of mine up at Baylor also has DoD clearance classifications, and he's working on classified stuff that you're not familiar with, you've never heard of. You won't get access to it. If you have a contract that requires a clearance, you will get access to something you don't know about in the public domain.
I understand that there's a lot of stuff that's classified. We have an entire system of national labs. There's no question about it. I'm talking about at the level of ground truth.
Again, the point keeps getting hammered home by Eric Weinstein about physicists not being a part of the UFO legacy program, at least according to Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff, right? And how that's really a big issue. And they just spend so much time talking about this. And Eric Davis just keeps sending home the point that if you don't have clearance, you're not getting in, but either way, right? The point still stands.
And if somebody has access to theories beyond those two, and they predicate manufacturing on it, and then we get the gifts of that manufacturing, just assuming that story is correct, we should be seeing some very weird stuff that is not explicable, as if Newton was looking at Lorentz contraction. He would say, what the heck is that? And so I'm just going to begin with things that make me hugely uncomfortable. And again, it's not as a dig, or it's like I just can't figure this out. So we toss off these humanoid aliens, like aliens that are tetrapods, literally tetrapod body plans. We have arachnids, we have insects, we have cephalopods, we have all sorts of intelligent life that doesn't follow a tetrapod body plan.
Right.
The odd of a humanoid evolving through convergent evolution somewhere else of a humanoid is vanishingly small.
But it's not zero.
Yeah, but it's preposterous.
But Occam's razor wouldn't be that these beings would be from elsewhere. They would be that they would be derivative of humans.
Or look, you can tell me some other story, like these things aren't even really the beings, that the real beings have constructed these things to interact with us, not to make us uncomfortable. Okay, I understand that.
Do you believe that?
That's possible.
Okay.
All right. But any biologist hearing this story is just going to have the same reaction, like tetrapods? This sounds like it came out of a Buck Rogers thing where you had to, it was too hard to hire an actor to behave as if they had a completely different body plan. So all aliens from the golden age of cinema or silent movies, whatever, were going to be tetrapods if they were playing an alien. So that, first of all, really bugs me, is that I don't want to hear about that with no mention of, it is stunning that there are two eyes, a mouth, a head, and it walks the same way we do. I mean, even if you look at like a camel's legs, where we have a knee, it has an ankle, or, something like that.
So what do y'all think of that? That's kind of interesting. I've speculated about that myself. And, I'm not a biologist and I'm not very smart, but I just assume that creatures are formed, through evolution based on the environment. So it's not, I guess I didn't realize it was that unlikely that they would be human for the reasons that Eric Weinstein is giving. Now, I've always thought, of course, these aliens look just like humans, right? And they walk like us, but not for that reason he's giving. So that's kind of interesting. What do you think of that? doesn't necessarily disprove it, but it is an interesting point. And I'm sure some of you are going to point out some things in the comments of, well, of course, it's this and that, and, whatever. Hey, a lot of y'all are way smarter than me, so have at it. But I think it is an interesting data point and could potentially be a red flag, right, for why aliens look like us.
I was very interested looking through some of your physics papers. You seem to live in a world that I really honestly didn't know existed, so I learned something from that. It's sort of like national security physics.
National security physics?
Yeah, that's not like a real thing, but if I look at a lot of your papers, they're focused on bizarre, how would I put it? Bizarre physics that accepts the standard model in general relativity as ground truth, predicated on some sort of engineering desire.
No, I'm just looking at, per my book, I was looking at the physics of what's possible with anti-gravity, gravitational wave propulsion, or rockets.
Within what? Within what framework?
Say again?
Within
GR.
GR.
Yeah.
So GR with or without positivity constraints, or how are you, let's slow it down. First of all, I don't understand. If these things are here from out of town, if they're not co-resident with us here on Earth, they're not here using the standard model in general relativity, I don't think. I mean, it's not impossible, but
I'm not doing UFO physics. I'm doing propulsion physics for interstellar flight. I'm not looking at this from a UFO perspective. I'm doing this as part of another.
So maybe you can make
work.
this. So
Warp
you're
drives,
the
wormholes, things like that.
Now, this is interesting because Eric essentially looked into some of Eric Davis's work and is asking him questions about the stuff and wondering why he's doing what he's doing and why he's done the work he's done and why he's written the books he has, right? And Eric Davis tries to separate. Well, I'm not doing UFO stuff. I'm working on just regular propulsion and this and that, But he always brings it back to UFOs, right? And Eric Weinstein essentially lays out this argument that the foundation for which Eric Davis, the foundation of the science that Eric Davis is using to theorize and speculate and write these books and papers is wrong. So if you're starting with the wrong foundation, why even go there? And again, this is so above my head, y'all. I'm not a scientist. I don't know science. I'm an idiot. But they're basically talking about, they call it GR, and they're basically talking about general relativity and how that's kind of an old thing that, there's probably newer understandings, right? And if we're talking about such an advanced species, they're probably not working around general relativity, essentially. And if I got that wrong, I apologize. I'm doing the best I can to lay that out in terms that I understand, to be honest with you. But I found that to be interesting. And, look, Eric Weinstein, he doesn't hold back with Eric Davis and his work.
My question is, can we figure out whether or not there's a grown-up effort? Because I don't think it's really easily possible to reverse engineer these things when your science is lagging. Like GR is the problem. The standard model is the problem.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
And yet your papers...
Well, my papers are separate from that. That's the whole point. It has nothing to do with UFOs. It has to do with Mark Newton's breakthrough propulsion physics program. I'm just contributing my knowledge.
But those designs aren't going to work.
Well, I didn't know that then, but I'm at a point where I know that it's difficult. Well, it's going to be beyond difficult to engineer warp drives and wormholes.
Well, this is what
regardless
I'm very glad we're having
the
this
configuration you
I took one look at this stuff and I just said, why is he wasting his time?
It's interest me. It's what I love. And I haven't been able to figure out any way to jump off that track and get on a track to an alternative version that could lead to something as revolutionary as trans-medium propulsion that UAP demonstrate.
Okay.
So at a bare minimum, we would say GR and the standard model, but I already know that even at the bare minimum, that's probably not even touching the truth.
Right.
So it's interesting to see Eric Davis kind of give into it and like, yeah, okay, maybe that's not right. And this, that. And it's like, okay, then what's with all that stuff that's out there? right? That I've seen people use his work so much. See Eric Davis and just talking about this and that, and he doesn't. I don't know how much faith he has in his own work, to be honest with you. Now, but I also understand Eric Davis's point. At that time, that's what he was interested. That's what he did. That's what he pushed forward. I get it, right? I understand that. It's almost like Eric Davis needs to revisit some of that and come out with new theories or speculation or corrections on some of his past work. And again, I could be getting this stuff wrong, so please correct me in the comments.
Are you aware of reports that we are being, I wouldn't say menaced, but
Monitored?
Made to know that we do not control our space?
Yes.
Do you find that highly credible?
Yes.
What percentage?
100, because it was definitive. That was told to me definitively, not speculatively. It was, we know this to be true.
So I've been told the same thing by multiple parties who are not related, all of whom seem like credible people. Yet nobody seems to have direct, firsthand.
Yeah. Even I can't get into that level. I mean, Harry Reid tried to get a special access program and he failed because Deputy Secretary of Defense William Lynn denied it. And that was because Harry Reid did it the wrong way. He did it the wrong way, and that's why it got denied. If we did it the proper way, which I'm trained on in the security apparatus, we would have been more successful.
Again, sports fan. We're talking to a sports fan here who doesn't get access, doesn't know any of this stuff, right? But he was told, again, definitively, not speculatively, which they have no way to know that. And Eric Davis should be smart enough to know that. And to be so certain of something you've seen no proof of is so unusual to me if Eric Davis is an actual scientist. Just taking the word for somebody is, 100%. Not 99%, not 99.9%, 100%. Right? Not 80%, 70, I'm 50-50. I mean, I believe them, but they could be wrong. No, it doesn't say any of that. It leaves no room for error. I just find that so strange. And again, to me, huge red flag.
My question is it possible that theoretical physics was sort of relocated into aerospace companies? Because this is a partially...
I wouldn't say no to that. That's possible. That's possible.
When we spoke to Hal Puthoff, he said definitively, not sure about fundamental physics being tied up in aerospace corporations, but he goes, topological physics, like probably. And he said, it would seem to me that physics generally is held in these aerospace companies. And, that was it made your sort of blood boil, and,
well,
as it should.
I worked for the Aerospace Corporation for 4.5 years. I was one of only a dozen or so physicists with PhDs in the company.
In
of
El Segundo?
4,000 employees.
Which location?
I was at Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
Because I was supporting the NASA Space Nuclear Propulsion Program office. So I was only one of maybe a dozen, maybe two. I don't think it was more than two, but definitely within 2 dozen PhD physicists in the whole country, in the whole company. And I'll have to tell you that not a single one, few of us were doing any physics. We were doing engineering work.
And how many of you were trained in frontier theory?
Frontier theory? What do you mean?
Standard model and GR.
Oh.
How far back from the front lines were you guys?
I knew those guys, and none of them were. Some of them were trained in astrodynamics, so they know general relativity and Newtonian mechanics. I'm the only one I know of who's been trained on the standard model and GR. I didn't know any of those other guys that were. There's one guy at Blue Origin who went to my university, got his PhD in general relativity theory.
University of Arizona, Tucson?
2 years after I got my doctorate.
Okay.
And he's working as an engineer at Blue Origin.
Okay. Last question. I can't wrap my head around this. If I was facing an incursion in my airspace claiming craft that defy the laws of physics, and I didn't have a single top physicist on my team, I would expect to be fired instantly.
Oh, sure, but that's not how they think. They don't think in terms of that. They're thinking in terms of their bottom line, and their bottom line will not involve a theoretical physicist. They might have...
Sorry. What? You have craft. The claim is
They're
you have.
engineers. I know they're engineers.
Okay, but if you
they're not thinking in terms of fundamental physics or something beyond the standard model or something beyond general relativity. They're thinking in terms
how are
of
they doing on this
how do we take
project
it apart?
decades in, the supposed project? How are they doing on it? What's their level of success?
All I know is, as of my knowledge,
if you're failing at something,
they have
that requires new physics, you say defy the laws of physics. We can't make progress, and we have no physicists.
Correct. That's because they don't.
David, this can't. Eric, this can't add up. It's a 2-line proof. It defies the laws of physics. We haven't made progress. We have no physicists.
Okay.
If something defies the laws of physics, who do you call? I know. You ask any of us, write down 15 names of who you call if you had a craft that defied the laws of physics. Wait a second. 12 of those names, 10 of those names would be the same on everybody's list.
Okay.
Again, coming back to the point, right? You don't involve physicists. And again, Eric Davis is saying he is a physicist and he's not involved. Again, what is the problem here, right? But Eric Davis seems to be okay with it. Again, just explaining it away is well, that's just, they got engineers and this is what they're doing and that's just how it is. And, I'm left on the outside and I believe what they tell me, essentially, right? The company man, the sports fan who just takes this all in. And even the work he's done is questionable, right? Way more work than I've done. So I'm not trying to say that. I've clearly done a lot of research, but it does just sound like he's been introduced to people who have told him things. And that's it. That's what everyone bases all of this off on. That's it. Just dinners, stories that have been told. No proof. Zero proof, y'all. Where is it? And now I'm going to let Eric Weinstein, again, send home the point of why you need to involve physicists. Now, if this is true, this is why you involve physicists.
Do you think this is because there's a level of secrecy that's attached to this technology and they've compartmentalized themselves to death and they've gotten themselves to a point where they don't know how to proceed further because they're preventing people from sharing information, which is one of the most important things about science.
Right.
Is that scientists get to share information and all work together to try to figure out what the problem is. Is that a reasonable?
Well, here comes the decision trees. Like, I wish I could say, yeah, that's what I think it is.
But it might not be.
So one possibility is, let's be honest, if you are faking UFOs, the last people you want are the world's most brilliant physicists. You give them the data, they're going to say, oh, look, I see what you did. You put a couple of flashlights with lasers into the sky, and you can move them really quickly by the angle, and that creates the illusion that something is zipping through the world. Right? If you are faking UFOs, if you're faking a UFO-gasm, the last thing you want is theoretical physicists on the case. So that would be one reason to clear them out.
The funny thing is I've made that same point before, right? That people could be confused by lights like that it seems like it's doing XYZ, right? Because again, like Eric mentioned before, defies the laws of physics, right? But, videos have come out, instant acceleration, it did this, it's doing that, the 5 observable, this, that. And then it's definitive proof. But it's not. We don't know. It could be, but could not be. It could seem like it's doing that. Again, that's why you involve physicists, right? Again, red flags.
The final thing I would say is, if Hal Puthoff was telling us that some physics is held, even if it's just experimental physics, you have a bunch of people over the last 70 years, the foremost in my mind, Townsend Brown, and this Ning Lee at University of Alabama, Huntsville, saying that they're getting little weight reduction effects, gravitational shielding.
And that's wrong.
Something.
They didn't. They were incompetent. There is no weight reduction.
So simultaneously, Hal's thing of there being
the 2 chapters in my book on the Townsend Brown effect.
So that's so funny. Eric Davis just like, these people are wrong. Townsend Brown, and we all know Jesse Michaels loves Townsend Brown, and some of that work, but he seems to think it's wrong. right? Just those two people that they brought up, completely wrong. And Eric Davis wasn't done trashing them, essentially.
So the topological physics effects.
Have you talked to Travis Taylor? He knew England.
So the topological.
She's a rotten, terrible physicist.
Yikes. And Eric Davis saying, have you talked to Travis Taylor? Well, Jesse doesn't answer that, but, I haven't talked to Travis Taylor, but Travis Taylor did say this about Eric Davis.
I will tell you this. Eric has a tendency to accept and believe stories from pseudo-credible, because of where they come from. Then he assumes what they're telling him is a credible story without getting the background data to prove their story. Like if I told Eric that the moon, there were aliens on the moon, Eric would probably believe me, right? And I don't mean that as a discredit to Eric. Eric is he's trustworthy, very, very trustworthy of people that he trusts. So I think what Eric needs to do is find a better way to show proof than simply the stories.
Ouch. Right? And Eric Davis talks so highly of Travis Taylor and uses him in this video so much, Travis Taylor this, Travis Taylor that. Meanwhile, that's what Travis Taylor is saying about Eric Davis. And what's interesting is Gary Nolan had this to say about Eric Davis.
I mean, I know Eric Davis, and, Eric is of a kind of character that it's just impossible for him to lie.
So he essentially can't tell a lie. That's interesting, because this is what UAP Gerb recently said on Chris Ramsey's podcast, Area 52.
I mean, in the Age of Disclosure documentary, everyone from Eric Davis to Hal Puthoff was labeled as an ATIP scientist.
Yeah, not
That's
OSAP.
malarkey. Yeah, that was a very weird directorial choice. And
not OSAP, not Bass, not...
No.
Yeah.
And I know that was filmed maybe 2 years ago, but the Age of Disclosure now and those figures, specifically Puthoff, Elizondo, and Eric Davis and Jay Stratton, are trying to present a false and incomplete UFO legacy program outline. And, people have said, like, how do I know better than former intelligence officials? Well, I'll challenge you that most of these officials have not been completely forthcoming with their involvement in programs, as well as Eric Davis has, offered me plenty of lies in the past about certain things.
Now, to be fair, we don't know what Gerb's talking about, what lies, how does he know it's a lie, right? He would have to fully know the truth to know that whatever Eric Davis told him was a lie. He may have suspected he lied to him, or based on his research, right? So just to be fair there, but I'm just saying, Eric Davis allegedly, in my opinion, is probably exaggerating things. Is he lying on purpose? Is it just he's unaware? I don't know. But again, more red flags. And again, bringing up the Age of Disclosure, I agree with Gerb, right? Like, the Age of Disclosure, I just made a video on all that, right? Is put out this false narrative about the UFO legacy program. And I think that's what Eric Weinstein is kind of pushing back on, right? And again, there's many narratives out there about this, because everyone seems to think they have the answer. No, what I was told, my sources told me, what I was told, that's what's really correct. These people don't know. I know, right? It's, Eric Davis is so cocky and confident on one hand, but then also shows, in my opinion, an insecurity by everything he knows he was just told, right? And there's an insecurity in that. And kind of having that cocky confidence, in my opinion, is to help cover up that insecurity. Because I'm sure he would love to have actual proof, but he doesn't. So you got to seem confident and cocky about what you know. I think it just comes from insecurity. Again, sports fan.
There's no sense of what any of this stuff is, but they're also not putting any theoretical physicists, like Eric's colleagues, on any of this stuff. Like, it just feels sort of...
Here's the thing. The government is going to tell the aerospace company, this is hypothetical, but this is how it works according to my two industry sources. Okay, the government says, here's a craft. We want to know how it works. The industry contractors say, okay, and they think in terms of engineering. They're not gonna do fundamental physics. They might have experimental physics. It's not out of the realm to have an experimental physicist working there, but they're not theoretical guys. So they'll have to know some theory, but they're mostly experimental.
You've given no.
Hang on. So they get the tasking that they've got to take apart a craft and they've got to figure out how it's made and how it's worked. That's how it works. That's it. That's the tasking. So that leaves out any need for a theoretical physicist. They don't know that.
You would agree that.
Wait. That made absolutely zero sense.
But that's how they operate.
No. You said but because of that, that's why they don't. No, you absolutely need a theoretical physicist if you're going to take apart a device.
I don't disagree, but that's how they operate. That's what the program manager in the government says. So the program manager in the company is going to say, okay, here's our solution to that problem. So here's our bid. They get a sole source contract. No, there's no bid. It's a sole source contract. So they get the sole source contract and they've already laid out what the tasking is to be done on that contract. And the tasking that needs to be done is the engineering to take this thing apart piece by piece, reverse engineer it, put it back together again and try to figure out if they can make it work or not and understand how that happens. And that's all they do. They don't have tasking to hire a theoretical physicist to sit there and start thinking about the standard model, beyond the standard model, or anything. They don't go there. These are engineering companies. They're not universities. And they aren't even allowed to talk to universities about this because of the compartmentalization is horrible.
Sorry, if an iPhone fell into the hands of a villager in some far-flung developing country, the odds of a cobbler or a carpenter figuring out how an iPhone worked is negligible.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the same thing is true on your engineering. I mean, look, the Manhattan Project was an engineering project. There was a deliverable. It was a device.
But they had to have physicists
for both projects. Mm-hmm. You're not giving me any understanding of why there were physicists in one and not the other. Wouldn't the same, even if you had a wrong, it just doesn't make sense to Eric.
That's just what all the evidence comes down to, I should say. I haven't met I asked my senior VP, said, we didn't have any physicists.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. You would absolutely bring in physicists if this was a real program. No question. Now, maybe they have brought in physicists, but Eric Davis doesn't know about it. But then at the same time, Eric Weinstein's like, I know the top physicists. I mean, they're out there. Could there be top physicists who were secret and hidden, who studied, without it, or people without educations who are just smart geniuses that they picked up? I mean, now we're really getting conspiratorial with that kind of stuff, right? I mean, you could trace people's education, and if they dropped off, you'd know, right? And that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So I'm just saying, it's not like there's a lot of astrophysicists or just physicists, theoretical physicists in the world, right? There's not that many. So it's kind of easy to keep track of where they are, and the government to hide them would be weird. Now, there is, the government does use scientists while they're working at universities. Is that right? Kind of like on loan. But again, why you wouldn't involve physicists in the UFO legacy program to try to understand something that defies the laws of physics is absolutely probably the greatest point I've ever heard about disproving that the UFO legacy program even exists, period. And I, want to be wrong here, but I just don't see any other way. I'm not, wholly convinced. I'm not going to say 100% here, but it is a good argument. I'm still open-minded, but I'm just saying that's a huge hurdle and red flag to get over. And look, there may be a reason why that's the case.
So people are they want to believe so much that they're going to lie.
It's an issue.
Yeah.
It's an issue with Bigfoot. It's an issue with everything.
It's an issue with all of us. It's an issue with me too. I have desires, and I have to keep my desires in check.
Yeah, everyone. I have them horrible.
Right.
Horrible with the unknown. Horrible with UFOs. Horrible with...
We have to camp and decamp, and that's what I think. What you do is great, which is you sort of believe, and then you say,
I give up. I change.
Right.
I go back and forth.
Well, that's what I do.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, once you've pulled out all the mundane things, the question is there a residue left of things that actually are mind-blowing? I can't tell you until I actually see stuff that somebody's willing to say, we captured this, it looks like this. But I can tell you that I am assured repeatedly by people who seem incredibly sober, who do not seem to be great actors, that they have seen amazing things. We have data that is as clear as you can imagine, and we can't release it. And then you have this question of, is there anyone smart who's trained in this very small number of areas who's looked at this? Or are you just going to like eyeball it and pretend that it violates physical law when you don't even know physical? You don't know physical law. So far as I know, Eric W. Davis is the top person who knows what a tensor is on this project. Are you kidding me? Try to imagine that you're trying to do the Manhattan Project with like K-pop groups.
It's that big of a difference.
People will say, well, we have electrical engineers. Like, I don't care. I'm talking quantum field theorists. I'm talking differential geometry, general relativity. And people are tired of you. Like, you're an elitist, you're a snob. Oh, go fuck yourself. I shouldn't have said that. Please edit that.
Soft.
What?
You said it really soft.
I know.
It was very soft. Go fuck
but
yourself.
It's just like...
one of the kindest ever. It was no anger in your voice.
I'm trying to be an adult, but it's been 3 years. You've been wasting my time.
Yeah.
You say the word stovepipe as if it means something. Shut up and show us what you've got. We're your team.
All right, so that is the nicest, go fuck yourself I've ever heard. And he whispered, it's so funny. He's trying to be an adult in a child's game. That's going to be difficult. But yes, people like to lie about things they believe in, and we're all susceptible to it, okay? There's no question. But again, like I said, there is a potential reason, an alternate hypothesis that Eric Weinstein is going to throw out of why physicists are not involved. Because again, it wouldn't make sense that they're not. So now it's okay to start theorizing, well, why wouldn't they be involved? What could be the actual reason? And I have to say, this is a pretty good one.
But an alternate hypothesis is that this is a dummy program masking something, and the last thing that you would want ever on such a program is a physicist, because the physicist is going to tear right through this thing and say, there is no Byfield-Brown effect here. Let me show you, whatever. So my claim is that avoidance of physicists might be necessary to keep a dummy program going, just the way the presence of physicists was necessary to get a deliverable for Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Interesting.
Oh, man, that's kind of a mic drop. Not, I don't know. I'm just saying that's pretty good. That's pretty good. The reason you don't bring physicists in, because if you did bring them in, they'd go, this is all nonsense. This isn't alien stuff. But engineers and other people are fooled by it. And the only way you bring physicists in, you don't actually bring them into the program. You just tell them things are going on. And they're like, okay, let me see it. Well, you can't see it, unfortunately. It's classified. You don't have a need to know. Okay, well, give me a need to know. Classified. No, we can't bring it. Why not? Well, because if we did bring in, you'd see we're all full of shit. Right? And when you say a dummy program, the military and the government likes to use decoys. And sometimes programs are created just for decoys. Right? We do that with tactical military operations, right? You kind of throw out, we're going over here. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then the thing you're actually going to do, kind of, they don't know which one it is. That happened on D-Day. There's lots of scenarios like that. And there's lots of different examples of programs that happening, just decoy programs, right? Could be for other reasons. These people are working on this stuff for other reasons. They think it's alien, but it's not. Again, that's why you don't bring in physicists, because they would spot that shit in a second. And I have to admit, that's Makes a lot of sense.
Another thing is that I was sort of surprised that he wasn't nearly as read in at a primary level, so that he's able to talk because he didn't actually make primary contact with this.
Well, that's the thing we were just commenting on off camera, which is like this funny dynamic of everybody seems to be circling around this program and nobody seems to be in the program. It's a little like the Epstein list or something.
Yeah.
Which is not at all, we'll stop the analogy there. But it is this weird thing where it's like, no one's gone to the island, but like, or not me rather, but everybody else has or whatever. And these are, everybody's demonic or whatever. And in this case, it's this weird thing where everybody's this Mr. Smith Goes to Washington character who stumbled into this in this sort of hapless way, and they have no idea how the thing actually sort of functions and works, and that allows them to talk about it.
Or even if there's a thing as described at all. I mean, I'm convinced that there's a thing, and it has a boundary, and it has some structure, and there's some money in it, whatever. But I don't know that what's inside that container is what is indicated on its surface to the extent that anyone can even see the boundary.
Yeah, well, that's a question. Is like, does the tip of the iceberg look like, is it actually an iceberg? And are we looking at a tip of the iceberg where you can say, we have a crash retrieval reverse engineering program, but that's actually some sort of intelligent sleight of hand. And in fact, the body or a structure that is underneath, submerged in the water is obfuscated, and that changes everything.
Yeah, it's like you have a kelp forest which has a top which looks like an iceberg. Something like that. And
I was just trying to figure out the right analogy.
Well, there isn't a good one.
There isn't a good one.
So a couple interesting points here to end with this whole interview. One, it's about 2.5, almost 3 hours of Eric Davis and Eric Weinstein talking. And then the last hour is Eric Weinstein sitting down with Jesse Michaels and that other guy, Jack, to talk about this stuff. It was very interesting, actually, kind of like a post game interview, right, of what happened, to keep the sports analogy going. But it is interesting that Eric Weinstein brings up the point, right? Kind of surprising how little Eric Davis was involved. Again, sports fan. That's essentially what we get. We get sports fans who aren't involved with the programs, right? They've never been in the game. They don't know. And we're listening to them, right? So, again, very interesting. And then the point they make, I think a lot of people have made this point. I've definitely made this same point on Vetted many times, right? And they put it out great, right? We see the top of the iceberg, but we don't know what's underneath. It could be something totally different, right? We don't know. There's smoke, but we don't know what the fire is. And even Eric brings this up later. I don't show the clip, but it could be just a smoke machine. Like, we don't know what the fire is. There's some going on. We just don't know what it is. There's no definitive proof that it's aliens or extraterrestrials or anything, right? And I have to admit, that's pretty much how I look at it as well. Again, I'm open-minded to all of this, just waiting for the definitive proof. They can keep moving the goalpost all they want, but I'm not letting go of, I need definitive proof, right? Then keep telling stories and this and that, and trust me, bro, and I heard from this guy, and I was told definitively 100%, right? You can bring all that cocky confidence all you want, but I'm not letting go of that definitive proof, right? You can tell me all day what's underneath that iceberg, but I need to see it for myself.
What do you hope for the next year or two of disclosure? I mean, I think it's clear that you think the brain dead way in which this is run without theoretical physicists
I would
change.
I would like to meet adults on this project who are not grooved into thinking that we can just repeat things that never made any sense into the future as if they make sense. The idea that we are being visited by crafts that dominate our airspace, that we cannot understand, do not know their origin, that defy the laws of physics, and we avoid the one specialty that could help us at all costs, and that this makes sense to anyone, is a fairy tale that should not be I think that a mentally retarded golden retriever should not repeat this fairy tale.
So look, that's it for that. I'm going to put a link down below to the full video so you can watch it, because there's many things I did not cover in this video, and I highly recommend it. It was really good to watch, and I have to give a huge shout out to Jesse for having this conversation. I think we need more of these. I think it was really cool. And again, I'm all respect to Eric Davis for showing up and doing that, and all respect to Eric Weinstein for showing up and doing that as well. I really enjoyed it. I hope they do more like this. And I really enjoyed it. So a link down below, go check it out, and all the other source links. Now, at the beginning of the video, I told you that there was something I was saving for the very end, because I want to show all sides, right? It's not just the people that push disclosure, or, you know, the believers that bring out disinformation or are a little disingenuous, because there's also an entire skeptic community that essentially can be guilty of doing the exact same thing, right? You know, I put up a tweet on Vetted recently, like, I love Vetted for one reason. Like, I'm hated by skeptics and believers. Believers think I believe nothing, and skeptics seem to think I believe everything, right? Which just goes to show these people never watch the show, right? But I love that. I love being in the middle. Love essentially pissing off both sides here. And I think that's why Vetted has grown so much. But I told you I ran an experiment, and I did. I didn't say anything about it, clearly. I've never done anything like this. I ran a couple of experiments before, but you know, you just got to throw them in every once in a while. And I had an idea while I was doing the Tom DeLonge interview, because it was about disinformation and what people will believe on the surface, right? Without really doing any investigation or research or vetting. Right. So I had talked about Secret Machines documentary. Right. You know what? Look, this is a clip from that video, and then I'll explain. And there you have it. It's called Secret Machines, right? And some of you may be aware of all of this history of To the Stars and all of this. And again, they did release a full documentary, but it's been scrubbed, and it's kind of hard to find. But I did put it on my Twitter account. I don't know how long it's going to be there. And so I showed the trailer, and I said, hey, I've got the full documentary on my Twitter. I don't do things like that, right? If anyone watched my show, they might have caught on something was up. This doesn't sound like Patrick. Why would he do this, right? So I put this up, right? Put this tweet right here up. Tom DeLonge's Secret Machines full documentary, hard to find, scrubbed from most of the internet, right? And then I put up this video that showed that trailer at the beginning, and then it was just a TTSA presentation, right? It was no Secret Machines documentary because they never released one, and I knew that, right? And some people were quick to jump and, you know, hey, oh my God, you know, but most people did not. It went absolutely viral for me, right? But it did. People did catch on that, wait a second, this isn't right. So some people caught it, but a lot of people didn't. The majority did not. They just took it at face value. They watched the first couple minutes and just assumed that's what it was. That's what happens all the time in this community. But man, I had some skeptics come after me hard because they also didn't do their research, right? And this happens on both sides. So skeptics, believers, it's not about that, right? I mean, here's an example, right? Jay Anderson called it out immediately. Shout out to Project Unity. And Jay made a little bit of mad, like, well, what are you doing? This is not a full document, you know. He had no idea what I was doing. But I'm glad he called it out and did his research. Now, this guy right here, he goes by Manny. This guy was, you know, allegedly wronged by Lou Elizondo, and very bitter, angry man who's always attacking me. Also came out like, you need to repent for this, Patrick. I was like, are you that stupid that you think I didn't watch the video I uploaded? Like, what are we talking about here? To me, this was so obvious. And then people couldn't believe that I, you know, experiment. What are you talking about? Again, they didn't ask. They didn't say, hey, where's your proof? Where's your evidence? Nothing. They didn't ask for any of that. They just assumed and they ran with it, right? Again, both sides of the aisle are very disingenuous in the community, and you got to keep your head on a swivel. And this guy was the perfect example. His name is Steve Long, and he's a skeptic in the community. I mean, he started messaging other people about me, right? I'm vetted, this, that, completely disingenuous guy. And again, there's a lot of people like this in the community. So just because you have skeptic before your name or believer or whatever, none of that matters. People can be disingenuous on both sides of the aisle. So I'm not here to just attack or criticize, believers or people who push for disclosure, because the skeptic community can also be just as equally disingenuous, because it's about getting to the truth. That's it. I mean, listen to what Steve Long said in an interview.
The culture is definitely accepting of UFOs. Unfortunately, the UFO culture is not accepting of anyone that's not willing to promote the narratives and the narrators within the culture. Anyone that throws any type of signs of threat or any type of questioning or scrutiny towards those narratives or narrators is seen as the enemy. And that's a shame, because those narratives and narrators should be scrutinized. They're not proven. They lack evidence, and they're calling on us and courting us to support them and to do things on behalf of them, including enact legislation in Congress and have hearings and spend lots of taxpayer money and do all kinds of things. That we should be scrutinizing these things and making sure that we are that what they're saying is truthful, can be proven, and that we're making the right decisions.
I just find that to be very funny, right? Again, it doesn't matter if you label yourself a skeptic or you're there for the truth. People like that, they never think they're wrong. They think they have it all figured out, right? It's all bullshit. It's all this. They associate the phenomena with disclosure and right? It's just all people who are closed-minded on both sides of the aisle. They're not open to another truth or reality, right? I'm just saying, I keep my net open. But again, head on a swivel, y'all. Doesn't matter. Skeptic, believer. Again, it's just about the truth. All right, betters. We'll see you guys on the next one. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
You're doing good work, man. Excuse the accent. I'm from Alabama. But I want to know why all these different UFO groups, Jeremy Corbell, yours now, Lou Elizondo, disinformation agent in his camp, and maybe the other camps, why do they all never talk to each other? You never see these guys in a room together. Ever. Do they really care? Or is it just about deception and money? You're doing good work, brother. Keep it up.